This video, I'm going to show you 3 ways to break out of the matrix and to become a powerful manifestor. This is going to help you to really take your power back and start to create the life that you want in a very powerful way. Welcome back to another video. My name's Aaron and I help people expand their consciousness. Now in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you those 3 ways that you can break out of what is called the matrix and show you how to become a powerful manifestor so that you create what you want, kind of like Neo in the movie when he realizes all the power that he has. Now, this is more of a metaphor than anything else, but I think one of the reasons that the movie Matrix did so well is because at a deeper level, there was parts of it that kind of subconsciously really resonated with people. And I think anytime there's a movie like that that does that well, especially when nobody thought it was going to do as well when it was going to the theaters, it's kind of a sign in a way that there's some underlying thread of truth in that movie. Now, the truth that I think there is that in a way, what we experience in our life is at a deeper level a projection of consciousness. It's a projection of what we believe to be true. And I believe at a deeper level, we are spiritual beings having temporary human experiences. That in a way, when we came to have this experience on earth, that we forgot who we are at a deeper level. And we had to forget in order to have almost like a very authentic type experience. It's almost like if we would have known who we are at a deeper level, it wouldn't make this experience as rich, even though it would have been more comfortable because we wouldn't have necessarily had to go through much pain and given things so much seriousness, but it would have, in a way, kind of taken away the purpose. It's almost like, use this metaphor as well, it's almost like you're playing a video game. And you're playing a video game, and if you were to know that it was a game, you can kind of just mess around. And you don't really take it as serious because you're aware that it's a game. But if you were inside the game and you didn't know that you were playing a game, then you would take it much more seriously. You wouldn't be as careless. You would have a much different attitude towards it. Now, in a similar way, we forget that we are having this experience in life and that at a deeper level, we have existed and will always exist in some form. And that's why in quantum physics, they show that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It simply is. So I believe that in a way, life is a dream that we are collectively having, that there is more flexibility than we could possibly imagine. We just believe so much in the rigidity and in the solidity that we actually create that rigidity. So we believe so much in the material world being so solid that we create a seriousness around it and that we create it almost as a self-fulfilling prophecy to then be so solid. When in fact, our potential is far outside of what we have been living. And there are people that break through this barrier. There is somebody that, like the guy that broke the 4-minute mile back in the 50s, or whenever that was, back in the middle of the 1900s. He broke the 4-minute mile and he redefined what is true. And guess what? Right after he did that, hundreds and now thousands of people have gone to break his record and to have done a 4-minute mile. So it was more so that people had to believe it was possible. Somebody believed it was possible. Somebody did it because beliefs create reality. Then it changed the collective belief system, or at least the belief system of those who were intending to run in that amount of time. And then they were able to do the same thing as well. So in the same way, what we can begin to do is to take our power back. And one of the first steps for you to really break out of the matrix is to first off realize that at a deeper level, this is a projection of consciousness, that you are an immortal spiritual being having a temporary human experience. That in a way you have logged into this experience to have and to feel and to experience what is real. Now in the movie The Matrix, Morpheus asks Neo and says, "What is real?" Or Neo's asking Morpheus, "What is real?" And he's like, "Well, what is real?" He's like, "What you think is real is no more than senses, is no more than vibrational interpretation. But we think it's real. We think it's real in the sense that it's all that exists. There is so much more if we become aware of it and if we start to really understand that." No, this is a lot of times when people have what is called a spiritual awakening. I went through a spiritual awakening back in 2012, and that changed my whole life. Everything was different after that. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10 before, I was priorly at about a 4 or a 5 out of 10. I was feeling mediocre, a little less than. I wasn't feeling that great. After my spiritual awakening, after I learned meditation and came to understand these ideas, I raised my vibration, and I was then at about a 7 or an 8. I thought it was going to be too good to be true, but it wasn't. It just became my natural set point. It became less kind of ecstatic because it became my natural, like naturally how I feel. Now, if you want to be able to raise your vibrational set point, to really create from a much more powerful place, but also to feel in a higher state of being, I've created a free meditation that will help you to do that and to get the same results that I've gotten with it. So that'll be in the top of the description box below if you're interested. But nonetheless, when we learn and we have a spiritual awakening, it redefines what is possible because we redefine who we are. We see things in a completely new light. So the more you find out about who you are, the more you realize that this is a projection of consciousness, that life is an experience that may feel very real while we're having it, but it's very empowering to know. Some people may hear this and they may get a little bit like, whoa, that's a lot, man. I don't know how to interpret that. I don't know how to digest that. I think it's very empowering to know. Because priorly we would get very sad when people pass away, when really it's just a shifting of consciousness. Everything exists here and now. It's simply vibrating at different levels of resonance. And when we understand that, we can create what we want in a very powerful way. So the first step to this whole process is being awake to the flexibility, to being awake that everything in life is fundamentally a projection of consciousness. Now the second way and second thing to do in order to break out of the matrix and become a powerful manifestor has to do with breaking social conditioning. Social conditioning is in the movie Matrix when you see everyone kind of mindlessly walking around. And I'm not saying that we need to judge people and be like, oh, that person's on autopilot. Most people are on autopilot, let's just be honest. Only when you start to realize and you start to become aware of the autopilot mind that you may sink into out of comfortability and out of patterns, then you could start to change that. But social conditioning is something that's very strong in society. You know, we all want to fit in. We all want to appear a certain way. There's a certain image that we want to project out to other people. But the moment you stop caring about that is the moment you can really be yourself. Now, this is when there is also the social conditioning that can really hold people back because we may think in terms of what is possible because society has already done it. The key to this is breaking outside of that. Now, one of the best ways of getting outside of social conditioning is stop consuming the news. Stop consuming things that are programming you to think in a negative way. Everything they show on the news, almost everything is negative. And then we start to develop a viewpoint that the world is negative. Therefore, we resonate and create experiences in our life that are negative. Instead, focus on what you want. Focus on what brings you and increases your state of being. And choose to be yourself. I know this is like a cat poster, right? It's like, just be yourself or something like that. But this is really the key. Don't be afraid of what people will think with you. Create your own path. Now, you look to some people. There's a lot of people that when they break this mold and they are themselves, people, that's what actually makes them grow. That's what actually gives them a lot of recognition because they've broken outside of that. Now, somebody that comes to mind when I'm thinking this, someone you guys might know, is rapper Cardi B, right? She has a very eccentric personality. She does that little bird chirping thing. She's very different. And what I was thinking is when she has that personality, that's just who she is. She's kind of got that eccentric type vibe. That really resonates with people because she is herself, even if that herself is a little bit weird. So it's not something to kind of frown upon, but at the same time, you don't have to try to be different. You don't have to be like, well, I don't do any weird bird noises. Maybe I should go out and make some weird bird noises or find a different bird noise to make or something. It's more so about just being aware that you can be yourself and stop caring what other people think because what other people think about you is none of your business. What other people think about you is they are thinking how they relate to you. And if they're not authentically being themselves, they will judge you. But who cares? That's none of your business. That's what I do. I've made YouTube videos for a long time, and a lot of people are like, oh, he's making those videos. And friends, family, some people just thought it was weird. Guess what? I didn't care. I knew that I had to make my own path, and that as long as I stayed in the direction of what I wanted, I would transcend caring what other people think, and that the more I could authentically be myself, the more people would resonate with it. So break outside of social conditioning. Don't be afraid to be different. You don't have to go down the cookie cutter route of you have to get a job out of college, you have to go do this, you have to go do that. If you want to do that, that's great. But be aware that it's something you really want to do and you're not just doing what you're told or you're not just doing what everyone else is doing. This is when we start to wake up. We start to take our power back. That's where things can really get interesting. Now, the third thing you must do is you must, in order to break out of the matrix, is you must redefine your limits. I remember one time I was working out with a buddy of mine, and I was doing this thing at the gym where you pull these this rope with like plates at the back of it. It's called push-pull. So you pull it and then you push it going to the other end. And it's a pretty intense workout, to be honest. And what we were doing is I remember we were doing like 5 or 6 plates, which is a good amount, you know. It was a little challenging. And I remember that I was there with my buddy and I was getting ready to pull it. We were like in between rounds. And one of the trainers, who's like 200 pounds, goes over there and sits on it. And I was waiting for him to get up. I was kind of laughed, you know. And my buddy's like, pull him. I was like, I can't do that, you know. I just kind of automatically assumed in my head that I couldn't do it because the 5 plates was hard. How am I going to pull some dude with like, you know, 200 pounds on top of the plates all the way across the room? So he was like, he kind of like woke me up from that, right? I was just in the autopilot mind, that social conditioning. He's like, why do you think you can't do it? He's like, just do it. I was like, okay. So I start to pull. And it was really hard. I'm not going to lie. He was barely moving. I remember the next day I was so sore, but I pulled him from one side all the way to the other. And in my mind, I thought I couldn't do it. But that was just the autopilot mind kicking in. And what I did in that moment is I redefined myself. And I realized that I caught myself, and he helped me, but realized that I was putting limits on myself as to what I can do. So what you must do in order to break out of the matrix is redefine your limits. Just like Neo, towards the end of the movie, becomes aware of all this power, and then all of a sudden he's able to do all this cool stuff, stop bullets. In the same way, what you can begin to do is redefine who you are. Now, our self-image is something that always has what is called a cybernetic mechanism. It means that it'll always go back to the default. So if I saw myself as not able to pull those weights, and I had a certain self-image, I wasn't able to push out of that because I saw myself as the person that just couldn't do it, even though it was subconscious. But then what I did is I started to see myself as somebody that challenges myself, somebody that's able to push through those barriers. And guess what? That leaks into every area of my life. Financially, able to break through the plateaus that I have. When in relationships, being able to break through the plateaus to connect with people at a much deeper level rather than just being so focused on my business and what I'm doing. There's so many different ways that's leaked into, but you have to redefine your limits. And one of the best ways to redefine your limits is to start to see yourself in a completely new way. Because subconsciously, you'll start to gear in and connect with the larger aspect of yourself. So remember, this is all something that happens when you start to realize that life in general is a projection of consciousness. And you can start to connect to this by realizing and having fun with the process. That's another thing you can do. You can break out by having fun, by laughing, by having a good time. Because when you do that, it takes away from the seriousness of everything, from the solidity. Remember, solidity equals rigidity. Instead, be flexible. Have fun with the process. Understand that life at a deeper level is a projection of consciousness. Enjoy the experience. Have fun because at a greater level, you're an immortal spiritual being having a temporary human experience. Transcend social conditioning by being aware of it, by observing it, and by choosing to be authentically who you are meant to be. Redefine yourself and focus in the direction that you want. Now, another part of something I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a lot of live Q&As on Instagram. So if you want to ask me questions and interact with me in that way, feel free to follow me on Instagram. I'm going to be doing a lot more over there, and I'd love to connect with you as well in more of that conversation style rather than just replying to comments. So if that's something you want to do, I'll go ahead and put the link down below. And other than that, as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to like this video if you guys liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Also, hit that little notification gear so that you can see the daily vids that I do. And other than that, as always, peace, much love, and namaste.